earlier. On afternoons after school, they disappeared behind the door of a room adjoining the newly built local Orthodox shul, which stood like a sentinel among blocks of flats and scattered trees not 3 minutes from the school soccer field. I watched them emerging an hour or so later as if they had been forcibly held under water, spluttering Hebrew syllables and exchanging jibes about their teacher, who was apparently no more than a doddering old clown. Bavakakakaka, ani rotten tomatoes. Bonded together in mockery, they hopped around on the grass of the soccer field, the sound of their laughter rippling upwards like a single shared flag of belonging above their heads. Though they might have needed to exorcise from their bodies the boredom of their lessons, there was no question of their wanting to escape the ultimate goal. They would all end up having a bar mitzvah in shul one Saturday morning or another in the foreseeable future. They would walk down the carpet with the eyes of the men and boys as also the women and girls in the upper gallery upon them. They would approach the raised lectern, passing row upon row of men wearing yarmulkes and draped in taluses, then stand at the sacred scroll and read from it to the congregation before being showered with gifts and adoration and going on to have a feast and make a speech in a marquee. Such a procession of Jewishness they brought together before me, those boys. Stanley and J.P., who was an orphan and once had ringworm, Colin, who, accidentally with a cricket ball, broke my front tooth, Johnny with the swimming pool at the bottom of his garden, where Doris Day had dipped her shapely body one fabled afternoon. There was Derek with his smooth raven black hair and his violin, freckle-faced David, Peter of the hospitable mansion with a boxing bag swinging in the middle of the garden and a great cage of singing birds to one side, Boyke and his inexhaustible supply of jokes, Malcolm, Stephen, Ashley, Jackie, whose house had recently been burgled, slothful, scheming Paul of the slack belly and bank bags bloated with marbles. Whatever has become of those boys, I wonder, every one of them from the plush and luxuriant, tree-lined northern suburbs of Johannesburg in the early 1960s. Then again, was I not from the same suburbs and Jewish too? What was so different about my family? Well, we did live in the most ramshackle house on our block, with earthquake cracks across the inside walls, goose-pimpled plaster on the outside, and, unlike any of my friends' houses, ours was filled with almost nothing new. As of the age of 8 or 9, I was out with my father weekend after weekend, scouting for furniture in other people's homes. Their inhabitants had fled the country in the wake of the Sharpeville massacre, the ensuing marches and violent repression of 1960. Added to this were the widely, luridly reported doings of the Mau Mau in Kenya. The writing is on the wall for the whites, went the rumor, and South Africa's airports and harbors were a hive of activity that year as, with anxious alacrity, white families packed up and left. We, of course, were never going to leave. Not ever. My friends' parents might talk of buying a one-way ticket for London or Melbourne or New York, but not mine. And anyway, we had just moved into our new antiquated house. So, on a Saturday afternoon, my father and I would add ourselves to a little crowd following a well-fed auctioneer about from room to stripped room of what had once been an absent stranger's stately abode. After a few hours, we drove back home to proudly lay our loot before my mother. Keelam carpets, a pinewood Swedish desk, lamps, vases, kitchenware, imbue, armchairs, a Morris settee dotted with little maroon roses. At first, the effect of all these things, once installed, was somewhat theatrical, like a stage set for what really stole the limelight in our house. Books. I knew no one else whose house was filled with as many books, pushing their way up from the pinewood floors to the molded ceilings, books with my parents' first names inscribed inside them, looped together and underlined in my father's meticulous script